This particular demonstration is going to show how to paint the grass and the earth tiles without using any ink wash. This demonstration only uses straight paint. And the reason I do this is because some people might have difficulty getting a hold of ink wash. So these are the materials we're going to use for this demonstration. First, you're going to need all of the earth tone colors I have listed on the website, and I have the recipes on the website. We have the earth tone dark, which is mixed just a little bit thinner, so it will go down into all the cracks. Earth tone medium, which is kind of a pumpkin pie color, and the earth tone light, which is a light cream color. These are all flat latex house paint. Now, for the grass part, we're going to need some green, and I do not have recipes on the website for the green. So what I suggest is to just go and get a nice medium green. This particular one is called leaf green. So if you get one that's kind of a real blue green, it may not work as well, but try to get something that looks like the color of a leaf. Now for the dry brushing and highlights, we're also going to need a little bit of yellow and a little bit of white. You could buy smaller bottles of these and it would probably work out just fine. The other supplies we're going to need are some mixing cups, water, some paper towels, and we're going to need some tablespoon measures to kind of measure the paint with. And the brush, I would suggest a 3/4 inch wide, very soft artist brush. Get a really good quality artist brush and it will last you a long time. So the first step in this process is we're going to go ahead and paint this whole thing, this dark brown. That's the earth tone dark. I know in other videos, like in the Gloomhaven molds, I painted this actually black. And the reason I chose black is because in that particular project you were already using black for most of the other things. So I figured, well, no need to introduce a whole nother color of paint to, folks are already kind of strapped for a budget. But this one I think I get a little better result when I'm actually doing this using the dark brown paint. Okay, the next step that we're going to do after that base coat is completely dry, we're going to dry brush this earth tone medium, the pumpkin pie color, onto the dirt and rock areas, and we're going to dry brush this medium green onto the grass areas. This is going to be kind of a brief version of it because I cover dry brushing in depth in other videos, but basically what we're going to do is we're going to take, and you're going to take just a fair amount, like this much paint. Now what you want to do is you want to get almost all the paint out of the brush. That's pretty good. If we have a little too much paint in the brush on this particular step, it's not going to hurt us too bad. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're just going to very lightly go over the top of this. And you're probably going to see a little bit of paint coming through right away, and that's all right in this case. And you probably from the video it may be hard to see, but we're going to stop about where the grass is. But if we overlap onto the grass, that's really okay. So we're just going to keep hitting it over and over again. And at this point it looks like there's not too much paint going on. So what I want to do is for the dirt and rock you kind of have to use short strokes. You almost have to jam it in there to get it in. And we don't really want to see much of that dark brown left. We want to get most of this, so the only dark brown we see is really outlining the main rocks. So this one right here I'm kind of jamming just straight down in, and it looks like I'm getting most of what I want on here. So the next color we're going to do is we're going to do the green on here. And this is just, like I said, the medium leaf green that we've got here. And if your color varies a little bit, it's really not going to make that much difference. Just a nice medium green. Now this particular paint, it may be slightly thinner than the house paint, but I don't know, I'm dipping it out and it looks pretty thick. If your paint's really thin, you might have to leave it on the paper towel a little while in order to get the excess moisture out of that paint. So we're going to do the same method with the grass. What we're going to do is you can just kind of brush over top of it, but little short jabbing strokes is probably good. And you don't want to make it too blotchy. You don't want to just put too much paint on, because what I want is I want varying degrees of green on here. You know what I mean? I don't want just solid green, because if that's the case, you might as well just paint it solid green to begin with and save yourself a lot of time. Dry brushing it this way, you see I splotched a little bit there. probably not going to matter too much on this second coat. So what we want to do is we don't want it solid green. We want some of that brown to show through, but we want just a little bit of that brown to show through. And the more brush strokes we use on this, the more variety colors between brown and green we will get. We don't want to be in a hurry. You want more strokes to do the same thing. Now you see that it's a little bit harder to see that line between the earth and the grass. You know, you think because of the grass tiles being grass and the earth being the earth, it's going to look like Minecraft. But as you can see, just by sort of blending our paint colors a little bit here, we're not really having as much of a problem. Now, I'm actually pushing pretty hard on this brush, okay? And I'm continuing to go over it several times. So I think right now what we've got is really about, really pretty good for that second coat of paint. Now the next step is to put our light earth color on top of the rocks here and just highlight the very tops of the rocks. Now this is the point where you have to be careful. We weren't really all that careful on this one, but on that medium coat, but on this light coat we really are going to have to be more careful. So what I've got is I got the lightest color of the earth tone colors. It's kind of a light cream. It's almost white. So it's a very, very light color. So you have to be really careful with it or you're going to have white rocks, So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure your brush is completely dry. It has to be completely dry. And then try to get as much of this off of the brush as you can until you don't even see it on the paper towel. So what you want to do is you want to very lightly brush over it. And you should not see any white or any cream color show up at all. If you can lightly brush over it and not see anything happening, you're good. Okay, you've got what you need. So what we're going to do is we're going to just very lightly go across. And if you don't see anything, that's okay. Just keep brushing and keep brushing and keep brushing. Now, this is where most of the nice colors are gonna happen here. So as you can see, as I'm going over, those little rocks and that little bit of dirt is starting to pick up. Okay, it looks like it's starting to pick up about here. You all see that? You all see what has happened in just the last few seconds of doing this? You have to keep this, and after you go and it looks like it's doing okay, you can use a little bit more pressure, and I would use shorter strokes and try to get the little dirt and grains to show up. So just take your time. Just a few little strokes, and I got a rock that's right up here by the grass. It's okay. What I'm going to do is hit that rock about as good as I can, and we're just going to go around it like this. And if I hit a little bit of the grass, that's okay. We can hit a little bit of the grass. In fact, I don't know, it might even look better if we hit a little bit of the grass. But right there is what we've got. And I think we're just about done. Now the final step is to dry brush the green highlights on the grass. And the recipe for that is simply going to be 1 part of your medium green, 1 part yellow, and 1 part white. And that's going to be the color we're going to use. Now I'm not going to measure it using the teaspoon because the color's not going to be as exact anyway. I mean, who knows that you're probably going to buy a different brand of green than I am. So it's probably going to, and it's just grass. It's not going to matter that much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, that's about a teaspoon. That looks pretty close to a teaspoon. Shake this yellow up here. And let's open it up and let's see. Yeah, that's about a teaspoon there. And then white, shake that one up, and then we're going to go, let's see, yeah, that's about a teaspoon there. Okay, 1 part green, 1 part yellow, 1 part white. And then what you're going to do is mix it up. Be sure that you mix it up really well. Now, since these colors of acrylic paint a lot of times are pretty thin, I want to be sure that I kind of dry that paint out. So I'm going to do the same thing that I've always done. Be sure you start with a dry brush. And let's see, that's about enough paint for now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint it. And I'm just going to kind of leave it in the paper towel there. I'll get a little more paint on there. I'm going to load the paper towel up with paint, and I'm going to let it set just for, just a little bit there, and just going to let it soak up the excess water out of that. Okay, so once again, always start off lightly. always start off very lightly. You should go over the top of it, and you really probably should not see any streaks or anything happening at all. I mean, this is a very light color paint I've got on here, but there's actually a lot of detail in these grass tiles, and it's really fun to pick up all those details when you're doing it. Don't rush through this step, because there's a lot of texture to appreciate in these tiles, and you'll see it actually come out on the tiles if you dry brush, if you take the time and just let this build up on the surface of this. Now, you see how that's coming out? This is starting to pick up a little bit, and those little blades of grass are starting to get lighter and lighter. And I may be hitting the rock a little bit, but that's okay. I don't care. Let's go a little bit more here, a little bit more here. Now I'm starting to see this. The grass is really starting to show up here. So what I've got, I don't want to get too, right here I'm starting to blotch it up a little bit, so I'm getting in too much of a hurry. So just take your time and go over it. And this color is probably about as bright as it's going to be. You'll notice it's not quite as bright as what you see on the paper towel here. If you look at that and you look at that, you go, well, geez, how did that happen? It's because these darker colors are transmuting through this really light green paint. So I think I am just about there. This really doesn't take that much time. Yeah, I think we're pretty much there. I'm just going to hit it a little bit more. Since I've got, nice dry paint, I can use a little bit more pressure and still get all of those little blades of grass to come out in that texture there. Okay, now here's what we've got for a finished tile. Now you may find out when you get this done if it looks a little bit too green. In other words, this green is a fairly, a vibrant green. It almost leaning on unnatural. But that doesn't bother me too much, because people expect green for grass, even though in real life it's not always the color you actually see. Now here's the finished results comparing the two different methods. The first method here uses the ink washes. The second method uses just paints, in case you're not able to get a hold of matte fluid medium or ink washes and any of that stuff. It'll still come out fairly well. My personal preference is the ink washes. If you compare the one without the ink washes, it's a little more pastel, and you can kind of see, I can get a little bit closer on the detail. I'm hoping that the camera will focus there, but you can kind of see that the colors look good. There's lots of variation in color, and the greens look pretty green. You can see all the blades of grass and all that. And then when you compare it to the ink wash one, the ink wash one is a little bit darker, but there's something richer about it. There's something a little more natural about it. You don't, I like the grass better. I think the color is just a little bit better. If we put these two side by side, you can see the one on the right there is the one without the ink washes, and the one on the left is the one with the ink washes. So you can kind of really compare the difference. Both of them, I think, look, really pretty good. So you just have to use your own judgment. Like I said, if you cannot get ink washes, then you might want to go with the one on the right. It's almost like the one on the right seems a little bit more, I don't know, a little more cartoony, a little more video game-ish, and the one on the left seems just slightly a little bit more realistic.